Malaysia's economy has been impacted by a burgeoning government debt in recent years. Its national capability to repay these debts has also been cited as a threat due to low government revenues. What is riskier is that, despite the growing national debt the country faces, this figure does not even account for hidden liabilities that the country has to account for. This means that Malaysia's debt would be far higher than it is today, and the latest available data is estimated to be around 1.04 trillion Malaysian ringgit, or $234.4 billion US dollars. The hidden debts or liabilities that Malaysia sometimes has to factor into its economy are money lost from ventures such as the One Malaysian Development Berhad, 1MDB, along with other corrupted and mismanaged ventures. These programs initiated that did not bear fruit would be a heavy burden to the entire Malaysian economy. These, however, are strongly attached to the fallacies of the government, and all of the burden and mistakes are done with their own hands. On the other hand, we also have numerous issues plaguing society, a looming threat that is referred to by some economists as a potential threat. As the title of the video suggests, yes, this is about Malaysia's household debt problem, which is one of the largest issues to have emerged in the economy of Malaysia. According to Bank Negara Malaysia, or the Central Bank of Malaysia, the country has a whopping 1.37 trillion Malaysian ringgit, or 306 billion US dollars worth of household debt by the end of 2021. Which is a figure that is higher than the country's government debt. In a relative ratio to the gross domestic product, it is over 89%, which means that the household debt of Malaysia is nearly as big as its entire annual economic output. On the other hand, it triumphs that of the government debt, which sits at only 63.8%. This household debt ratio is also one of the highest in the entire world, and only second in Southeast Asia behind Thailand. Amongst Southeast Asian nations, only these two large nations stand out. Singapore has a household debt to GDP ratio of just around 69.7%, Indonesia far less at 17.2%, and the Philippines at 9.9%. What caused the entire household dilemma, however, is a long history, but the short explanation of it is, according to the same data publicly available in the Central Bank of Malaysia, has shown that over 58% of Malaysia's household debt belongs to housing loans. Meanwhile, 13% goes to personal loans, 12% goes to car loans, and the rest are a mix of other debts. With such a huge debt, this will, unfortunately, bring many uncertainties to Malaysia's economy. A study published by the International Monetary Finance has found that an increase in household debt has been proven to drive an economy upwards, but only in the short term. In the longer run, these high household debts have rather proven to be disastrous to one's economy. In all scenarios, it will lower an economy's growth rate. This might be because, in the beginning, the society flushed with credit would be able to purchase goods and services, buy out homes, and go into mortgages. Yet, over time, the debt interest repayments would eventually hit the same people and drag down consumption. Moreover, too much personal debt can also cause one to go into bankruptcy and may cause implications for the entire economy if it happens to a big number of people. There will also be some people that would even go into personal bankruptcy and cut. What is even scarier is when an economic crisis hits at the same time. A separate study published by economists from the University of Chicago found that when a recession driven by household debt occurs, it often impacts the economy in disastrous ways. Their studies, which sought out the relationship between household debt and economic growth from 30 countries from 1960 to 2012, has enabled an economy to enter a depression phase. Further cited in the article is that high household debt is also among the indicators to predict whether an economy would grow fast or slow. These two articles do not even need to be shown, as it is simply true to understand that high household debt is often the cause of terrible economic growth. Yet, that does not mean that Malaysia, like historical nations, may experience the same consequences. The country is not there yet. It's not experiencing a collapse in its asset prices or a collapse in the credit market. While not yet, there is still time and room to fix it. In fact, since 2020, Malaysia's household debt to GDP ratio has gone down. In 2020, it was over 93.2% and only to fall to 89.6% by the end of 2021. Furthermore, household debt borrowings have also slowed down over the same period. But what made this figure go down, however, is due to the country's economy, or GDP itself, growing faster, as Malaysia has staged a robust growth of 3.1% in the same year. This, however, is a good sign but does not fix the underlying issue the nation still has. We have outlined at least 3 ways the country could fix its high household debt. The first, as we noted earlier, is going to need the entire economy to grow faster than the rate of borrowing. This path, of course, is more favored by the entire society, as not only will it help lower the ratio, but will help Malaysians enjoy a higher standard of living. But increasing the growth of an economy is not always that easy, especially in the case of Malaysia, where there is already a high household debt. And on top of it, numerous problems are happening in the country and globally. A second solution to this is that the government must take action. There have been numerous occurrences where government policies have supported the reduction of household debt. This can mean that the government may provide restructuring to some of these debt holders, giving them fewer interests or a longer time frame. One particular fix that the government of Malaysia has implemented was known as the Pemulih Stimulus Package, which was a beneficiary to help repayments. But the options of what the government can do are long. The last is to reduce lending to its population, quite a bit like helping ease the growth of borrowings relative to the growth of its economy. Banks can have a set of guidelines where individuals would be limited only to a certain amount of money to borrow. This is a specific idea that has been implemented throughout the world, but also recently in Thailand. Now, these are the problems and some potential fixes to Malaysia's high household debt. But to begin with, what caused Malaysia and its very diverse people to take up so much debt? Well, to begin with, Malaysia had a high household debt for more than a decade already. In 2020, it had only spiked up to record highs due to the COVID-19 economic crisis, but before that, Malaysia's household debt was averaging around 80 to 85% from 2012 to 2019. Even in the first decade of the 21st century, Malaysia's household debt ratio was already around 65%. This debt, which had already risen, was because Malaysia's economy was enjoying a higher than average economic growth relative to its Southeast Asian peers. Malaysia is amongst the best managed economies today. The country is flooded with foreign investments, very high and skilled human capital, and a strong government. Due to the nation being so well managed, it had adopted a robust financial system that allowed many of its population to easily borrow money. This made the entire banking institution have a relaxed approach to lending since the population enjoys good employment and salary. Further, there is also a lot of evidence that growing household debt can also impact a country's GDP per capita growth. This is why countries from Switzerland to Australia and other high per capita countries have higher household debt ratios, since their financial systems can afford to lend to their population while catering to the probability of systemic risks. However, this also brings us to the very problem of high household debt. It is not having a high ratio, but rather the real problem is if its population can or cannot service their borrowings. This is why there must always be limitations set by the government so that the risks of excessive borrowings can be regulated. Loans should only be given to those who fit the right financial criteria. There are also, however, outliers to the per capita growth and high household debts. For example, Hong Kong and Singapore are 2 key exceptions that have always stood out. The two have enjoyed a vast amount of growth within their economy and per capita, but the two have always been exceptional when it comes to issues like these. It could be due to good governance, proper policy enactment, and even due to their country's stability to continuously grow and outpace its borrowings. But either way, Malaysia's household debt may be at an alarming level. That does not mean there is no fix to it. Anyway, what do you think?